Hey, what is up? Welcome to this awesome episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I've got a big smile on my face as I do the intro to today's episode because I've got a guest on that ever since he's been on our production calendar, I've circled this date saying I cannot wait to talk to him because him and I personally have so much in common, chief of which is our genuine love for technology and our deep love for how technology impacts marketing and the difference that we get to make on businesses. So I could talk a lot about this guy, but I want to introduce him to you. His name is Josh Schonert. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Josh. He's a speaker, a best-selling author, and a digital marketing specialist. He's been involved in many different industries. Oh, that's true for a lot of guests, but let me tell you some of these industries. Josh has gone from selling meat door to door, selling insurance to farmers, and even having an almost decade-long career in tech support with a Fortune 500 company. So all different business sizes, all different industries. Fun fact, he also, I don't know how many people are from our generation who grew up with TI plus calculators in math class. He actually made games for those TI calculators. So we all benefited from those types of things. Josh has always been an entrepreneur at heart, dating all the way back to elementary school, where he would sell and trade POGS. Yes, I'm putting in all the millennial references at the beginning of today's episode. He first started studying digital marketing in 2018 and has been part of many different online marketing opportunities, but his real passion is serving others. So of course, he's a good fit for this show. In August of 2022, he went full-time with his marketing agency, Schonert Marketing LLC. He's based out of North Dakota with his wife and two sons. I'm not going to say anything else because I'm so excited to dive into my interview with Josh Schonert. Josh, I know I'm already excited about this because we were talking off camera, but now that we're recording, welcome to the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is awesome. I'm super happy to be here. And I just have to say, like, your energy puts a big smile on my face just because, like, you're such positive energy. And so, like, I'm over here, like, listening to you intro me and I'm just like ear to ear. I'm like, this is great. Not for me, but like listening to you talk about that, it just was really cool to see, just feel the energy through the screen. It was great.
Heck yeah. No, thank you, Josh. Honestly, and here's the thing. It really stems from the fact that I freaking love what I do and I love entrepreneurship. And I know the same is true for you in your line of work. So fill in those gaps for listeners. Tell us at a really high level, who is Josh?
Yeah, so I grew up in California, and when I was 18, I moved up to North Dakota. My dad lived up here when I was, a teenager. And so I thought, hey, I'm going to go up there. And the funny story is I was an angsty teenager. And so I actually kind of, I guess in a way, ran away from California because I was upset at some of the things that were happening in my teenage years. But that's a much longer story. But either way, moved up here, started going to school for computer information technology and, was really trying to build a career in tech. Met my wife at the time, she was actually just graduating high school. I was a freshman in college and we just kind of hit it off. And then life just kind of became a roller coaster at that point. And it was really interesting because I never thought, like, I look at where I am today and I look at where I came from, when my wife and I were just kind of starting our life together. And I never would have thought in a million years that this is where I'd be, running a business and providing for my family and my wife doesn't have to work and all that kind of stuff. But, like you talked about in my intro, I've done many different things and, the selling meat door to door, selling insurance to farmers, working at a Fortune 500 tech company, doing tech support for cloud products, all of that stuff, kind of ties into what I do right now because, sales and tech and things like that. But then other things that I've done, like I've worked at lumber yards, I've done concrete work, and I've done construction. I've, worked on cars. I worked at Jiffy Lube for a while doing oil changes and eventually managed one of the stores before, ended up moving on to a dealership and things like that. And so my experience, everything I've done has all been centered around customers, centered around customer service. And so when I got into the marketing world, I knew like I wanted to do customer work. And so I was like, how do I serve other people? And my wife and I back in 2018 found initially our first business opportunity was network marketing because we found great products. They were home-based products. And we thought, hey, this would be a great opportunity for us to help other people find good products, because you hear that all the time. People are like, well, I could get this or I could get that, and we're not really sure what it's about. And so we just dove right in. And that ended up leading me into digital marketing. And I started learning how to market those products. I started learning how to really make a name for myself, and networking, and getting to know other people and having conversations and relationships. But there was that missing piece. There's always that little piece there where you're kind of like, there's that little hole on the side. You're like, I don't know what's going to fill that, but it's there lingering. And that's where putting together some services for a digital marketing agency, where right now we specialize in email deliverability and social media marketing. And I was like, what are the pain points? And over the years, talking to other businesses, talking to individuals, I found out that the two biggest pain points were emails and social media. And I thought, what better way to start our company than hit on those two pain points, but hit the pain points that people really just don't know about. So how do we make sure our emails get to the inbox? Well, you got to make sure all the right records are set up. You got to make sure all that stuff, kind of works. And so that's kind of the quick and dirty of, started out really not even having an idea of I was going to build a marketing agency, worked, got into the corporate world. I mean, I spent almost a decade at this company doing tech support, thinking that was where I was going to retire. And just the marketing bug kind of nipped me and just said, this is where you're going to go. And so, like you said, back in August, we landed a couple of good clients and was able to take this business into full time. And my wife was already not working because we were making enough between my job and my business. And then, just decided to go full on with that. And now this year we're working mostly on growth and bringing on more clients and working with bigger clients. And so it's been a really interesting journey, but I'm really thankful that we turned up, because now I get to fill a major gap in the industry, which so many people are moving to things like automation. And our company, we're focused more on keeping the relationship side, the personable side of the business, because so many companies are trying to remove themselves entirely from the process. And that's the number one thing that I hear, the gripe that I get is, I don't get to talk to a person. People say, oh, well, I can work with this company, but I have to go through their website and submit an order, and then I get an automated email. And sure, we've got some of that stuff set up, but every single person gets a personal phone call from me. Now, I know that that's hard to scale to a larger model, but right now it works for us, and it creates long-lasting customers. And so that's where we're at today is, building our business based on relationships, making sure that we're providing the highest level service to our customers, and making sure that we're solving the problems that people are having in their businesses.
Yeah, I love that overview, Josh. And I think the one thing that I most closely relate to in your own entrepreneurial story, and I'm saying entrepreneurial story starting way before 2022, because I agree with you that it started as an elementary school student when you found your passions and how to turn those things into money way back then as well. You and I both had kind of like these side hustles that we were talking about off camera in high school and beyond that. So I love that. But the thing that's interesting to me is I did a podcast episode about this once upon a time, about how you're right. You said a key thing in there where at the time, if someone walked up to Josh at Jiffy Lube and was just like, hey, one day you're going to be running your own marketing agency, you're going to be positively impacting businesses' growth, you're going to be talking on big, business podcasts to listeners in over 150 countries, you're going to be making a difference in so many different ways, you'd have been like, well, how do I go from here to there? Like what happens in between? And that's the fun part, is we don't know how to connect the dots until we look in the rearview mirror. And so for me, I always look at, my first ever real job was, I worked at CVS for 2 days, and then I left on the second day, and I told my parents, I'm never going back. I was 15 years old. And the only reason I took that job was because I really wanted to buy Grand Theft Auto, and my parents wouldn't let me. So I needed to make my own money. But I can track back from that decision to quitting CVS to getting an SEO internship. I didn't even know what SEO was, but that led to me in college starting my soccer blog, and the rest is history. It's all taken off from there. I'm curious to hear your little version of that as far as the skills go, because obviously, we could talk about your career history. I don't want to go through your resume. What I really want to shine on the light for listeners is, doing meat sales door to door gave you this. Working at Jiffy Lube gave you this. What are those skills you picked up along the way that now as a business owner and now as someone who helps other business owners, you're just like, wow, dang, I didn't realize during that experience I was picking this up?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I would say there's 2 points in my life that I think I picked up a couple things that I utilize today. So the first one was when I was doing, so you mentioned the selling meat door to door, and that one and the selling insurance to farmers, both of those really was centered around creating rapport, building rapport with people, creating relationships, generating that level of respect that people can respect that what you're saying is truthful and you hold yourself to a higher standard. And so what that taught me and what that, helped me is with networking, understanding that people just want to have a conversation. People just want to be able to look you in the eye and say, I trust this person. I like this person. I want to be around this person. And so when I was selling meat door to door, for example, nobody knew who I was. I wasn't calling beforehand saying, hey, I'm going to show up with an appointment. I'd literally park my truck with a freezer on the back, grab a case of meat and go knocking on doors and just be like, hey, my name's Josh. I'm with such and such meat company and we're selling steaks today. And it's not just steaks, it's chicken, it's seafood, it's, everything that you love about what you cook. And you're literally trying to build that rapport right there. And then you start asking questions, hey, do you like steaks? They go, no, I don't like steak. Okay, well, you know what? We have chicken and shrimp too. I don't like that either. All right, well, we'll move on to the next guy. And so it taught me how to, number one, handle rejection. It taught me, number two, how to build rapport in a very quick way. So that way I wasn't stumbling. I wasn't trying to come up with tricky ways to make people like me. It was just be personable right at the door. And I did that. That was when I was 18 years old. That was one of the first jobs I had when I came up living in North Dakota. And so that was the big thing that stuck with me through, this whole time. And then later on, I think it was about almost 10 years later, I ended up doing the insurance sales. And here, same thing. I was going out to farmers. I was traveling all over the state of North Dakota, and I'd have a list of all these people that had policies and their neighbors. And the people who had policies, if you knocked on their door and said, hey, I'm with such and such insurance company, you have a policy with us. We want to have a conversation, make sure everything's going okay. That's an easy way to build rapport. But when you're going to their neighbor and trying to say, hey, I'm your neighbor, or I'm with this insurance company and your neighbor has a policy with us. And I just went and talked to them and they said you might be a good fit for, looking into this, because you always ask like, hey, who do you think would be a good fit for this? And so that really built the true relationship building side of, the entrepreneurial nature that I really grew to love, because it taught me a lot about creating relationships quickly and building rapport quickly, which is really key when you're building a business, because if you can't build rapport and you can't build relationships, it's really hard to not only gain clients, but also retain clients. So that was one big thing. And then the other thing that really stuck with me that helped with the skills that I have now is, working in tech support. I started learning things about email deliverability. I started learning things about how cloud products work. I really started to learn a lot about the technology behind a lot of these different products. And when I got into the digital marketing world, that really did translate over. Some people don't realize that, but working in tech support, you touch so many different moving parts in technology. And so when I got into this world, I started seeing a lot of it almost gave me like a sixth sense for the gaps in technology in people's marketing. And saying, hey, you could connect these two things together and it would work really well. And you can blow people's mind because they have no idea that would even have worked. And now there's all these tools that connect stuff together, but people just don't know how to use them. And so it gave me this almost like a superpower that allows me to get into a system and learn a system quickly, because I know how to navigate around and find all the ins and outs and understand how it works from a deeper technical level. And then when I go take that solution to my clients, I'm not going, oh, here's this tool, here's their documentation, go set it up. I can actually walk them through the entire process. So now not only did I understand how to build relationships and then understand how to utilize technology to make people's lives better with their companies, but then I figured out how to bridge the gap between those two and use my knowledge of technology to help them feel more comfortable that I'm helping them and that I know what I'm talking about. And that in turn continues to build that relationship even deeper.
Yeah, Josh, honestly, so much that I'm excited to dive into from just what you shared with us. But I want to call something very important out for listeners, because it's something that I know that you understand how much it affected your life, not even just business, but it's something that I can very deeply relate to. And I think that a lot of people take it for granted when they look at us and they say, oh, well, that just comes naturally to you. I've actually never articulated this anywhere, let alone here on the podcast. But Josh, you to me are a perfect illustration of this. And I want to call it for listeners. Listen to the way that Josh talked about going door to door and building that rapport. And Josh, you said that building rapport quickly, it was one of your goals. That's of course a huge skill to have. But listeners, one thing that Josh talked about is rather than finding the gimmicks that you'd probably pick up in a sales training or a door to door training, you know, we see all these gimmicks of ask this question as an opener, make this funny joke as an opener. Josh said, I didn't know what I was doing. I just kind of went and connected to people as humans. Josh didn't know the rules of engagement, and he used that to his advantage. And listeners always love kind of getting the behind the scenes stuff of this podcast and our production approach. And I'll be honest, I don't listen to other business podcasts. And listeners always say to me, I love your show. I love how you dive right into it. I love the format of it. And I always say, well, thank you, but I don't know what we do differently, truthfully, because I'm not copying anybody else's style. I've never studied other business podcasts. This is just the way that I love to operate. So Josh, I think one of your unfair advantages is just that you bring Josh into everything that you do. And I love how in your answer, you talked about the two very distinct sides of Josh, which you're lucky that you also have the intersection of those, which is a genuine love for people and a genuine love for technology, and enabling the two to play together. Like those are your true passions. So with all of that in mind, I'm super curious to hear your perspectives. Let's really apply it to marketing and to what you do now. What are some of those? Because it's interesting. You and I are a rare breed of people who we could geek out about tech for years and years alone. Yeah. And we'd be totally cool with that. But then at the same time, we freaking love humans. So I want to hear your perspective. What are some of those things that you think people get wrong when it comes to marketing because of technology?
Yeah, those. Oh man, yeah. This could go real deep, but I'll try to nail this down quickly. So one of the things I would say, let's first talk about the social media side of things, because right now social media is big. I mean, everybody wants to build a brand on social media. They want to be viral. They want to go crazy. You know, especially with the new stuff going on with TikTok and all these things. It's really hard to understand how do you become a well-known brand and have influence and have your image displayed in a way that people can actually connect with your business. And they think that they have to use all of these different black hat strategies, and they have to, work the algorithm in a way, and you got to post at certain times, you got to do all these things. And when it really comes down to it, yes, there are some technological pieces behind how to utilize social media for a brand. But the way that we approach it is we approach it as more of just brand recognition. Is our goal isn't to utilize social media for people to accomplish specific lead gen goals or sales goals or growth goals. Our goal is helping people actually we actually say it in our business model is bringing their vision to life through digital marketing. And when people say, well, what does that mean? Well, that means utilizing social media as essentially an outreach program, not necessarily a lead gen system or a sales system, but an outreach program to share what you're doing with your business, share how your business changes the community, share how your business changes, the industry, share the humanity side of your business. And what a lot of people get wrong is they think that social media is just post, sell, promote, show all your deals, show your codes, show all this stuff. And we're all numb to that. And, you and I, Brian, we're both in the millennial side of things. And as millennials, we're numb to just being promoted all day long. And so what we do is we teach people to bring value back into social media, because that's the biggest thing people, I believe, are missing, is they think that, you have to promote all the time because you've got to be able to generate leads. And sure, maybe if your lead generation strategy is organic social media, that might be true that you think that way, but it's not the case. I've seen way more engagement and way more clients built in my personal business just by sharing valuable, helpful, and more like a thought leader, not necessarily a business or a promotion. And every time I try to do something that's even remotely salesy or promoty, it just falls flat. And I keep telling people, I said, it's not because the social media platforms are not pushing your content. It's because people don't react to that like they used to. People are not chomping at the bit to go buy the next big thing. Now people want to be nurtured. They want to be, valued. They want to feel like they can connect with a business. And so that's the number one thing that I believe people get wrong from a social media aspect, and why we don't focus on clients that say, oh, we want to use your service and, we hope it generates us a lot of leads. We hope it generates you a lot of leads as well. But the goal isn't that. The goal is to create content that is actually driving a social aspect, engagement, delivering value. And that's where I think a lot of businesses really get it wrong, because they think that they have to do it the other way in order to succeed. So that's the big one for that one. And I don't know if you want to have any comments on that before I move on to the next one.
Yeah, I just want to add in here because it's interesting to hear me or for me to hear you talk about, TikTok and social media, because the way that you talk about it, you're right. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and I hear the metrics they pay attention to for social. I hear their content strategies. But to me, when I hear you talk about it, I just hear like Josh, the networker, talking, where you're just like, no, I show up to a networking event, not to sell to people, but to make connections, to one day, have a proverbial, whether it's in person or online, coffee with somebody to get to know their needs. And it sounds to me like that's the way that you treat social media. And I'm not going to lie, as a listener, it makes me be like, well, Josh, I want to follow what you say on social media, because that's something that I'd love to pay attention to.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I appreciate that. And you're right. It is. I treat social media like a networking platform, right? That's what it was designed for in the first place. When Facebook was first designed, it was, well, I guess we won't go into the real reason why it was designed by the Zuckerberg and the other guys. But when it was actually networked out to colleges, it was designed for college students to network together, to be able to, be together. And then when it expanded to the world, it was designed for people to be social. And the problem I see a lot is people are taking the social aspect out of social media and they're trying to use it just as a sales machine. And if we can teach people to do both, bring the social aspect back into your marketing, but then also utilize it as ways, we have a client right now that's literally, on the verge of being a very, very big deal within the United States and potentially eventually the world. And the whole idea is just generating content that's centered around what do they do, why do they do it, what is their vision, their mission, their purpose, and then where can they get information. And that's it. And honestly, we're seeing, like, when you talk about metrics, yeah, we do track metrics, but that's not what we focus on. We don't go into meetings and say, all right, guys, here's the growth you had and here's all this stuff. Yeah, we do talk about it, but we talk more about like, hey, this is some of the posts that got the best engagement. Maybe we should double down on some of these to kind of get more content out that looks more like that, to generate more engagement, which will generate more reach, because that's really what the algorithms are looking for. Is they're looking for, are you getting people to be social? Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is huge now with that. If you get a post that gets a bunch of comments and people are having conversations in that post will start getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And I've seen people's posts that are 5, 6, 7 days old showing back up in my feed because they're continuing to get comments. And if you look at the notifications, you'll even see notifications that says, hey, people are talking about this post or people are commenting on this post. Well, if that's the case, why are we not driving engagement versus trying to drive sales? And, I heard something a while back, and I don't remember who said this, but it says when you take yourself or take the the focus off of yourself and put the focus on others, magical things will happen. And that's exactly how our business was grown. Is I was in the verge of like, I want to leave my job and be a full-time business owner. And then I said, you know what? That's not the real reason. I dug deeper and I said, why do I really want to do this? Well, I want to do this because I want to help people. So how do I truly help people? And so I, got a YouTube channel going and I started doing how-to content. I did my social media based on my wife and I, when we left network marketing, I kept our social media page and it's nothing but motivational posts 3 times a week. And we get tons of engagement on those posts every time they go out. People share it, people comment on it, people like it. And I even have a whole group that's dedicated to one of my favorite authors that's just value-based. And I get so much more influx of people asking me questions on what I do than I ever did when I was trying to make sales.
Yeah, I love that. That is a knowledge bomb right there. Listeners have heard me say a million times, when you do things that don't scale, you build a business worth scaling. And what I'm hearing from you is that when you do things not just quote unquote for the gram, that's when you start getting that engagement, you start getting traction. I think back to, you mentioned TikTok a couple times. One of the earliest corporate successes that we saw on TikTok was actually not a corporate promotion post whatsoever. And it was Arizona Iced Tea. And it was the skateboard guy just skateboarding. Yeah, it was a sunny Southern California day. This guy was clearly in the zone, just going down the street with his skateboard, taking a selfie video, just sipping on Arizona iced tea. And it went so viral, millions and millions of views, not only for him, but also for that brand awareness. And it's feel good, happy content. And at the end of the day, we're all humans. Here's the thing. I feel like as marketers, and Josh, I'd love for you to go into this topic next. As marketers, I think that we have a tendency to talk in terms of marketing and to talk in terms of how do I increase open rate? How do I increase click-through rate? How do we maximize our conversion rates? But at the end of the day, all of these questions are actually just questions about how do I get humans to do certain things? That's it. It's the human element. Talk to me about that and your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So really, when I think about, like, let's say, for example, I'm working with a client, we're putting a strategy together, and it's like, how do we get people to actually want to do the thing, right? That's the human element is, how do we get them to bring their human element into our content? And when we talk about that strategy, the number one thing that we talk about is we ask them questions like, why did you create this business in the first place? What is your overall mission and vision for your company? What are the things that make you different than everybody else? And then we think about, how can we insert that into the content and drive people to actually take action? And what we do is we take that information and we make it where it's relatable. And because the thing is that people want to feel like they are part of something. They want to feel like they're part of a community or a part of a movement. And so if they're going to take action on something, it's got to feel like that you're talking directly to them. It's got to feel like you're talking to what they believe in, what they feel is right. And so when we create content, the idea behind that is, how do we create this content to make it feel like you're talking exactly to somebody? So a good example is, if I'm talking about social media content, actually, it's funny, a post just went up today that I'm actually kind of proud of, because I talked about the pains and struggles of people trying to figure out how to stay consistent on social media, how to figure out the hashtag strategy, how to figure out, to get engagement, all these different things. And people can spend hours and hours and hours figuring that out every single day as a, one person or very small team. And, I touched on the pain point of, you can either figure it out yourself and spend all this time trying to do that when you don't understand the strategy and you don't understand how it works, or you can go find somebody that can help you. That's probably going to cost you less than hiring somebody in-house. Well, definitely going to cost less than hiring somebody in-house. And they're going to understand the strategy because they do this every single day. And so what we do is we teach people, you want to touch on those points that when somebody reads that post, they go, oh, I feel that way. I feel exactly like that. I'm going to go ahead and engage with this post. And it might just be a like, it might just be a comment. But then you take it a step further and you make them think about, I always tell people, ask questions, get people to answer questions, even in your content. So if, even simple things is you make a statement and say, what would you do? And then they will engage and say, well, I would do this. And then you go back and now you have something that you can start having a conversation with. And the other part of it is, let's take, email, for example. Email is one of the hardest places to get people to open and read and click. So what do we got to do to get email to do it that way? Well, you got to have a subject line that makes them stop in their tracks and go, whoa, okay, I want to open that. So if you have I always use the example, if you have a list of marketers and then you start talking about health products, they're not going to open your emails. They're not going to care about weight loss. They're not going to care about anything. So it's got to be relevant. It's got to be something that they actually care about. Then it's got to be something that will stop that scroll or stop their, going through and deleting their emails and read this subject line and go, well, that's interesting. And so we had one recently that was, talking about, it said, hello, darkness, TikTok's old friend. Because TikTok's been doing this round and round of getting banned, and countries are starting to ban it on government devices. So let's touch on that point. And inside there was different topics. It wasn't just the TikTok topic, but it was a whole newsletter of different things. And that email has had some of our highest open and click rates because you generate something that some people feel relevant, because 150 million Americans are on TikTok. So they read that email and go, yeah, that's relevant to me. They go through the email, see the updates and go, oh, these are marketing things that I could probably use on my TikToks. And then at some point, there's a link that says, hey, if you want to see more about this topic, go ahead and click this link. You're driving basically from the top down, making them feel like they're part of this movement, they're part of this community, making them feel like they can actually relate to the content, and then make them feel like they have no choice but to actually go to the next step because of the fact that they are already invested. And that's the biggest thing. If they can get invested in your content and get invested in the material that you're putting out, they will continue to come back time and time again, and your engagement will go up, your lead generation goes up, your sales go up, and then now everything that you've put this work into, it all makes sense versus trying to say, well, why isn't this working? Well, because you're not actually touching the points. You're just telling them, we want you to do this versus you might actually want to read this.
Yeah, Josh, I feel like in that answer, you just revealed one of the key marketing ingredients that so many people overlook. And it's really one word that you said quite a few times in that answer, which is something that people relate to. I think relatability is something that's so lost in the way that most entrepreneurs and a heck of a lot of businesses do marketing. And it's funny, even thinking about, you and I, our personal rapport,
right.
We established that so quickly because of all the things that we relate to each other in, our age, our generation, the time that we grew up in. And it's funny because so many people don't add those things into their marketing. But ultimately, how many times has someone done business? I remember when I owned my marketing agency, when I started it in 2012, when I was still living in Boston, I can't tell you how many clients I picked up just because, these VPs at these big, $15 million a year businesses were like, oh, kid, you went to this college? I went there as well. Or, oh, my kid went there as well. And it's those sort of relatabilities. Those, I'm fine to say, those got me those gigs up front. Like, I knew that was one part of my relatability. But actually, I didn't know where I wanted to go with my next question because there's so much that I want to dive into with you. But speaking of our things that we have in common, I brought up the fact that we are of the same age group. We are both millennials. And one thing you said before we hit record today was, gosh, do you ever look back? Times were so much simpler when we were kids. And I totally agree with you. We were the last generation that didn't grow up with social media, didn't grow up with cell phones. I didn't have my cell phone until I could drive. So we have that in common. Josh, I'm curious to hear, because so much of what we're talking about is the human element of marketing. And it seems to me, without having been a client of yours, without, being involved in your projects, but it seems to me like one of your superpowers is really simplifying, bringing that simpleness back to marketing, back to strategy. Talk to me about, in a high-tech world, how you're finding it using technology to enable this approach, but simplifying all of these things.
Ooh, yeah, that's an interesting question. So I would say the biggest thing that we simplify is the process. We don't have a long, drawn out process to get help to people. The biggest thing is, the two, like I talked about earlier, the two biggest services that we handle is email deliverability. So helping people make sure that their email marketing is up to snuff and that they're following all the best practices for the email providers and those sorts of things. And then we have the social media marketing. Excuse me. So the big thing about that is when we simplify a process and we tell people, hey, our process is actually really simple. There's not a lot of complicated stuff going on. For the email deliverability side, I literally get on with people and say, let's go through your system. And they know what they're using. They know everything that they've got going on. I don't have to ask them a bunch of questions. I just say, what are you using? And let's go through it and let's get it, take a look at it and make sure it gets set up. So that's probably the simplest process we have. But to the social media side, all of these different agencies, when I was doing market research before I decided to land on this service, is number one, I knew that I couldn't do it all by myself. And number two, I knew that I wanted to have high quality content. And so I found a team that I could partner with to be able to do this. And we worked together to simplify this process to basically make it a 3-step process. Number one is, basically getting people on the phone and getting all their brand information. Number two is getting that information to our team. And number three is delivering the content. And because it's so simple that way, most businesses go, well, this is way too simple. I don't think that this is going to work for us, because they're expecting all of these different bells and whistles and all these different things. And they're expecting me to walk through this whole entire presentation. I can get on a phone call with somebody, a Zoom call, and just basically walk them through in a 5 or 10 minute process of exactly how everything we do works. And we're not wasting their time. We're not wasting their energy. We're not wasting their money. We've priced ourselves in a way that we can help small businesses and big businesses. And when I say big businesses, more like medium size. We don't really work with like people that have thousands and thousands of employees. But we made it a process where it's one phone call. We get all of the information and then we handle the rest. And we create the content, schedule it, post it, do everything all on our side. And then we have a dashboard that people go to view all of the content that's going to come out for them. And they can leave feedback. They can edit it. They can do what they can approve it if they like it. They can leave comments. I mean, anything they want to do. And we've literally made the process as easy as possible. So that way businesses can utilize our service without feeling like they have to onboard an entirely new portion of their team. And the other way we simplified it is we just said, hey, we're taking care of the content, and we don't want to try to make a business teach us how to engage with their people. So we leave the engagement to the business so that way they can be the voice of their business. They can build the relationships. They can build the rapport. And all we're doing is taking all of their vision and their movement, their material, their pictures, everything they've got. And we just put that into a social aspect and make it relatable to their market.
Yeah, I love that overview. And obviously so much of it comes back to so many of the different things that we've talked about in today's episode. Josh, for sure we could talk about all this. And already this is one of the longer episodes, but I don't want to end it just yet because I do want to bring this up, and then obviously we will start wrapping up, and I'm so excited to share where listeners can go find out more about your work. But sure. The one thing that I wanted to talk about today, because for me it's a joy to be in the presence of somebody who views marketing not only from the technology component, but also so deeply from the human component and that relatability component. And Josh, I always have the best interests of the listeners at heart. I view my role as host as I just get to be a listener, and I get to, at least I can ask questions. That's the huge benefit of being the host versus the listeners. I'm trying to ask what they would want to ask. And knowing as much as I do about the entrepreneur to entrepreneur audience, so many of them are saying, well, I've heard you guys talk about, getting my emails opened. I've heard you talk about making more engaging posts on social media, but what if nobody's listening to me? And I know that for me personally, I say this to any student who I've ever worked with when they're just like, well, and I ask them, what are you doing for marketing? How are you getting in front of your ideal customers and clients? And they say, well, I'm blogging. I started a podcast. And my next question is always, how many people are reading that? Because if nobody's paying attention to your blog is not marketing. That's not marketing. Marketing is about getting in front of people. So what's your take on it? You've worked with so many different types of businesses. I've been scrolling through, from a Spanish school to PR companies to tech companies, so many different avenues. What's your answer to those beginner entrepreneurs who make up a lot of our audience that are saying, Josh, nobody's even listening to me?
Well, the biggest thing I'll say is, in reality, nobody really listens to you at the beginning anyway, because you're new. You're just a new face in the world. But to get people to listen to you, you have to be authentic. You can't try to be somebody else. You can't try to, nobody can be Alex Hormozi but Alex Hormozi. Nobody can be Gary V but Gary V. Nobody can be you but you. And the biggest thing that helped me when I started kind of building my network and building my community of people that know me and like me and trust me is I just started being myself. I remember when I first started doing like live video, and the first live video I didn't get any views or any engagement. And then as I continued to move forward with that, I just continued to do another live. I think there was a challenge I did. It was 30 lives in 30 days. By the end of that 30 days, people were actually looking forward to showing up to my live videos. And I did a lot of that for a while. And a buddy of mine and I did a podcast for a while. And you can never start in the beginning and expect people to listen. But if you continue to be yourself and touch on stuff that you're passionate about and that you believe in, and you can actually make that relatable to other people, people will listen. And I don't want to talk about these things to like toot my horn with some of the customers I've worked with, but we've had clients that come to us that say, I don't understand why people aren't engaging with my emails. And we figure out that they've got some deliverability problems, and we help them out, and we give them some pointers and look at some of their copy and give them some consulting. And then next thing you know, they'll come back and say, wow, this is amazing. We went from a 20% open rate to a 50% open rate. Our people are engaging, our click rates are going up. Same thing with social media. People that I've worked with that, they have nothing. And then we teach them, be yourself, be who you really wanted to be in your business, and just show people that you're a real human being, that you're authentic, and that you really care about the well-being of others. We truly care about every single person that comes through our doors. And if somebody comes to us and says, oh, you're just doing this as a service. No, I didn't start my agency to just serve people as a service and make money. I started it because I saw the gaps in the marketplace, and I knew that I could help, but I knew that I needed that influence to do it. And so I just started helping people, and the word will get out 100%. People will start talking about you. They will start sharing your content. They will start bringing that out there, but you can't stop too early. The problem that I see a lot is people go for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and they go, well, nobody's listening, nobody's watching, nobody's doing anything. You have to keep going and keep being yourself and keep showing people. And don't be afraid to share it, to scream it from the mountaintops. Go out there and share it to everything. When I release a new YouTube video, it goes to Twitter, it goes to Facebook, it goes to LinkedIn, it goes to everywhere. Don't be afraid to tell people that you're excited about what you're doing. But again, you have to be human about it. You can't just go out and say, here's this new product I found, go buy. People aren't going to pay attention. Be you, and you will get heard.
Boom. In 7 years of doing this show, that is some of the best advice that's ever been shared here on the podcast. I can't tell you how many times in my life, in my entrepreneurial journey, that advice that you just gave served me. In fact, the very reason why we're here today is because all the way back in 2015, when I was starting to write my first ever book called Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur, everybody said to me that a business book has already been created. People have written a ton of books about entrepreneurship and how to start your first business. And the only thing I replied, and it was kind of in jest because I was a 20-something-year-old who thought I understood the world, and I would always just say to them, yeah, but nobody's written it the way that I can write it. And here we are 7 years later with thousands of listeners all around the world, one of the top business podcasts, and it all stemmed from that decision to just do it the way that only I could do it. So Josh, Incredible advice there. I love that. Such a fitting way to close this episode. If you do have, at this point, I want to say, Josh, I'll tell you what I want to say, and I will say it, but I want you to take it however you want to take it. If there's last minute tidbits you want to drop on listeners, feel free to. What I want to say at this point in the episode is, obviously, I'm so excited for listeners to follow you, check out your YouTube channel, go to your business website, which is schonertmarketing.com. I'm going to say it, but obviously you should say it as well. I want you to tell listeners where they can learn more about you and your business and follow along, but take it away, Josh. Anything you want to add for listeners?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, like you said, schonertmarketing.com is our business website. That's where we're providing our services. And we are actually even in the process of working on partnering with a couple of other entrepreneurs as well to kind of start bringing in other services into the fold. So in the future, we're just going to be able to have more and more that we can serve people. And we look for people that have similar values to we do. But the biggest thing that I'll just say is, right now is a really tough time for a lot of people. There's a lot of uncertainty going on. There's a lot of, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. And the best thing that you can do is trust in yourself, but also trust that there are people out there that are genuinely willing to help. Our business is one of them. I know plenty of other entrepreneurs and agencies that are in the same boat. Our goal is to just help people alleviate the pain and the pressure of the things that they either don't know how to do, don't want to do, or don't have time to do. And, for us, we focus on the services that, we're good at. So for myself, email deliverability, for myself and our content team, the social media marketing, we know that those are two big pain points for businesses. And so we focus on that. But don't be afraid to allow yourself the opportunity to free up some of that mental weight that's hanging on you, even some of that feels like physical weight hanging on your shoulders because you don't know where to go next. There are so many companies out there like myself that are willing to step up and help you out and get you moving forward and get you heard within the marketplace, because that's really the goal, right? We focus on service-based businesses. So people who are providing services to others, that's our perfect client. Number one, we know that to a T because that's my whole life has been service-based business. But the other part of it is that we know how to bridge technology into relationships. And I think that's the biggest thing that, anybody who comes to us or an agency like us, our goal is not to reach into your wallet and take as much as we possibly can. Our goal is to reach into your heart and turn that into your content.
Boom. Giving value right until the very end. I absolutely love it, Josh. I encourage listeners. I always say that success leaves clues. You just heard almost an hour of Josh's marketing brilliance in all of these different aspects of connecting with people, connecting with your future clients, your current clients, all of this. So Josh has an incredible way of doing marketing. Definitely go check out his company. It's schonertmarketing.com. Of course, we're linking to it, so you don't have to worry about spelling. Josh, I'm sure a lot of people are intimidated by your last name, just like mine. So it's schonertmarketing.com, SCHONERT marketing.com. But check wherever it is that you're listening to this episode down below here for the link. And Josh, on behalf of myself and every listener all over the world, you've been a wealth of knowledge. It's such a joy to hear you talk about marketing. So thanks so much for coming on the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much.